President, you tweeted earlier linking the closing of the country to your election success in November. Is this Easter timeline based on your political interests?
What do you mean by election success? No.
You tweeted, you said that the media wants the country to remain closed to hurt your odds
No,
of
I think
being
the
reelected.
media, the media would like to see me do poorly in the election. I think
lawmakers and economists on both sides of the aisle have said that reopening the country by Easter is not a good idea. What is that plan based on?
Just so you understand, are you ready? I think there are certain people that would like it not to open so quickly. I think there are certain people that would like it to do financially poorly because they think that would be very good as far as defeating me at the polls. And I don't know if that's so, but I do think it's so that there are people in your profession that would like that to happen. I think it's very clear. I think it's very clear that there are people in your profession that write fake news. You do. She does. There are people in your profession that write fake news. They would love to see me for whatever reason because we've done one hell of a job. Nobody's done the job that we've done. And it's lucky that you have this group here right now for this problem, or you wouldn't even have a country left. Okay.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we asked the question, is this a worst case scenario? Or are we watching the mainstream media weaponize their fake news against this country and President Trump's administration's attempts to try to mitigate this global pandemic? We're going to dive deeper into all of that. Plus, did President Trump just confirm Q's latest post via Twitter? You guys are going to want to stick around and check out that and a whole bunch of other breaking news from across the globe. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. I start by saying thanks if you've hit that subscribe button. Look, if you haven't, that's fine. But if you want to help out the channel, it helps me out big time. It really doesn't cost you much. Come here, click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Then select all so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. We always pick up right where we left off. This is it. We're at Q post 3898, and we haven't had any more Q posts, but we're going to talk about older Q posts that relate to everything happening today. Plus, we're going to cover a bunch of news stories that are very important. And before we get into that, I got to tell you about the sponsor of this episode. This episode's being sponsored by redpillliving.com/justinformed. Use that link or use the link in the description to come check out redpillliving.com's liposomal vitamins. And the one in particular I want to talk about today is vitamin C, and it's a liposomal vitamin, and that means it's absorbed a little bit differently than normal vitamins would be. And the only reason I bring this up today is because there is a special deal. If you use the link in the description to check out this product and all of their other products, you can actually use the coupon code IMMUNE, that's IMMUNE, IMMUNE, to get 15% off your liposomal vitamin purchase from redpillliving.com/justinformed today. So, the only reason I bring it up, look, I've been reading these articles, I've been seeing them popping up here, and this one just came out on March 24th of 2020, so just yesterday, talking about how New York hospitals are actually starting to treat patients with vitamin C as a part of a complex treatment to help with the prevention or the mitigation of the virus itself, the coronavirus. Now, I'm not saying this is a cure, and I definitely think you should consult your physician, and this is not medical advice. Before you take any products, consult your physician, but you should definitely come check out this deal at redpillliving.com/justinformed. They have this great product that I really want you guys to try out. So with that, we'll get into the latest here today. So first, I want to go back. We're going back to Q Post 150. Now, this is brought up because of the clip you saw at the beginning of this video where President Trump mentions that 150 countries have actually seen this disease now, and he stresses that number. He says 150. Can you believe it? Now, this was something that it jumped out to some of the anons as soon as I posted this over on Twitter, and then they were like, go check out Post 150, look at what it says. And I was like, all right, so I'll go check out Q Post 150, and I did. And of course, it says, distress call to others will do you family no good at this stage. We know where you, the family, are at all times and can hear you breathing. Q. Now, this was a part of an early stringer that Q put out when we first started getting these posts on the board. This is back in 2017. But you can see that the three letters that are outlined here in the proverbial, metaphorical, whatever you want to call it, kill box here, where it says Lynn de Rothschild. And if you think about that, that's what the Anons put together later, but that's what we're seeing today. I think that everything that's happening, I actually pointed this out on Twitter earlier. If you guys aren't following me on Twitter, you should definitely go check out the page. But I pointed this out on Twitter earlier, that here you can see the silent war against the coronavirus comes with a $2 trillion stimulus package, which we just saw being pushed through Congress as we speak. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But don't forget this Q post back on November 11th, 2017. Q told us about the wealth of these nations. And it seems that the exact amount of money that's being floated here between 2 and 6 trillion is exactly the same amount of wealth that Q had informed us was behind the House of Saud, the Rothschilds, and the Soroses. So think about that. What family was removed upon President Trump taking office? The Rockefellers. Then there were the three left, the Sauds, the royal Saudi family, right? The Rothschilds, and then the Soros. And then these are the people who Q identified very early on as being strategic players in this entire battle, if you will. So I thought that was very interesting, and I brought it up because, when I was looking back at this, I just thought, wow, that's interesting that the exact amount of money that we're spending on this virus is to the tune of exactly how much Q informed us these people were worth. So, for me, I look at this very skeptically, right? There is so much pork in this. But I saw President Trump's press conference this afternoon, and hearing him talk about how there were concessions that were made, it reminds me, yes, we still have to reach across the aisle with these people. We still have to have some kind of give and take. It cannot be all or nothing, or else we'll never get anything done, because, yes, they do participate in our government, and yes, they do represent people in this country who have the right to representation and have the right to request certain things. And we're not trying to remove that. Yes, it's unfortunate that these people have become, identitarians and have become these basically self-obsessed, greedy, corrupt, feckless, useless individuals, the ones who are representing these large populations in Congress, whether it's in the House or in the Senate. But we also have to remember that there are a lot of good people in there, and there are a lot of people in there who are trying their best to work and reach across the aisle. So in the spirit of trying to bring together this divided country, I don't know that it's necessarily the worst thing in the world that there were some allotments for spending. Now, that being said, you can ultimately argue that there was a lot of pork, and a lot of it was for useless things, and a lot of it was strategically placed for specific reasons. Now, getting into that, remember what Q said to us just the other day, and I have this on a tweet, but I'll just scroll down here, where it talked about ending POTUS rallies and ending the political gains under President Trump and ending the unemployment gains under President Trump. These critical things are all about one objective, and that is undermining President Trump's ability to get reelected. Now, the fake news mainstream media, using their weaponized fake news, argue that, oh, now President Trump's just worried about his election and he's politicizing the coronavirus and so on and so forth. But not one of them seem to look at the strategic advantage to every one of this country's enemies and adversaries, and even some allies who are supposed allies, in having this coronavirus hit at this specific time, right? These things don't happen by accident. The Chinese communist dictatorship doesn't suppress all information about this coronavirus and let it spread around the entire globe for no reason. Yet, we have literal shills for the Communist Party working in the mainstream media because their corporate overlords tell them it's good for business. China's a bigger market and they want more money, and they would rather work with authoritarians who are more willing to take bribes and be corrupt than people in the Trump administration who are about integrity, honesty, and merit. They don't want to deal with that. And that's what we're up against. And I think that's something people need to realize sooner than later, especially as we move forward in this entire process. And I just had to get that out there because I thought it was an important point to look at. Now, before we get into the sealed indictments and everything, because, I'm looking at what we have, right? I want to look back as well at what Q told us about this closing of 21 million cell phone accounts. Now, in my last video, I suggested it's possible maybe that this was a part of, a mass die-off that could be from this disease that the CCP is trying to cover up. But at the same time, I heard a lot of the anons out there and people, on social media commenting that this also could be indicative of the CCP cracking down on political dissidents during this time to try to limit the spread of this information, especially about the coronavirus. I mean, they take away your cell phone because in China, it's basically mandated that every citizen has a cell phone. And now you're seeing that they're taking them away in mass, trying to silence the people of their country. And of course, this virus has provided the perfect cover for their increased authoritarian moves against, for the most part, very innocent people. And that's the Chinese people. There's a big difference between the Chinese Communist Party and most of the Chinese people at large. So we have to make that I do at least have to make that delineation between the two. But at the same time, look, this is what we're up against. They're delaying the China trade deal with the U.S. They would rather deal with Vice President Biden, whoever, because they understand that they have him basically bent over a barrel with all the stuff his son was doing with the Bank of China and the $1 billion plus deal that was made there. So they have all the incentive in the world to try and undermine President Trump's election efforts. They have all the incentive in the world for all of the things that have happened, right? Like we've talked about, what does this virus do? It attacks people with weakened immune systems, compromised immune systems, people who are elderly, people who tend to become a drain on society. And when you live in a vast communist society as big as China, one of the biggest in the world, I would say, they only have limited resources, right? And they have to, as it has been put very callously by other people, I've heard, thin the herd. And that's sick and disgusting, but that's, in my opinion, I mean, would you really put it past the communist authoritarian Chinese? I mean, I'm asking you that question because I don't know. But I would say that we need to look closer at all of this because Q laid it out here perfectly for us to see. And that's where we're at right now. So, of course, like I said, we're going to look at the 150,000 as of February 29th, 2020. 154,000 sealed case proceedings. So nothing to see here, nothing happening at all. But here's the tweet where President Trump basically confirms this entire Q post that we looked at from, what was this? This was on March 23rd. So a couple days ago, 3896, where Q explains what the China virus ended up doing by asking these questions. And it seems to make perfect logical sense. And I would never expect the mainstream media to cover this, but we're going to talk about it here, right? What were they trying to do? Set it up so they could steal the election, shelter Biden, try to undermine all of the gains that were made by President Trump during his administration. I mean, you can't really expect us, the American people, to believe that this was all just, an accident, coincidence. I just don't buy it. But that's me. I'm asking you guys what you think as we go through this. Now, President Trump says, the lamestream media is the dominant force in trying to get me to keep our country closed as long as possible in the hope that it will be detrimental to my election success. The real people want to get back to work ASAP. We will be stronger than ever before. Yes, sir, Mr. President, I think we, the American people, agree with you in that this is exactly what's happening. The mainstream media is capitalizing, or as he says, the lamestream media, which is much better, much more clever, but is capitalizing on this opportunity to try to undercut President Trump and try to sabotage his ability to become reelected because they want to overthrow him. They've tried everything. I mean, the post here literally says Mueller failed, impeachment failed, the Hollywood Democrat follow the stars narrative failed, the actual literal coup failed. They failed. And now they're doing everything in their power to try to undermine him even worse. And I told you guys this. I've been saying this for 2 years, over 2 years now, that they would try to tank the economy and do anything they could to keep President Trump from getting elected, and here we are. So with that, I just want to get into a few other stories as to what the mainstream media is doing on a regular basis to try to undermine President Trump. Here's a story from Fox News talking about CNN's Jake Tapper is now under fire. Yeah, I'm sure. After admitting he didn't fact check AOC on Trump coronavirus claims. So literally AOC gets on his show and says President Trump called the coronavirus a hoax. Complete lie. Complete fabrication. Out of left field. You can't. The fact that these people can say this stuff is insane. But the worst part, as is noted here in this article, is that Jake Tapper doesn't even call her on. He says, he tweets out later, well, I thought about it, but, President Trump did say that us trying to pin this on him was a hoax, so I let it slide. That's basically what he says. And you're thinking to yourself, this is where we've come to. These are the people who claim to be representing Americans and their interests, right, in the media, while at the same time undermining the man and his administration, the president and his administration, in all of their attempts to try to help save our country in a time of global crisis and national crisis. But would you expect anything less out of the fake news? And I just don't think so. So here's another one. As Trump is handling the coronavirus and getting a 60% approval rating, it's going through the roof basically, taxpayer-funded NPR stations saying that it won't air that White House briefings. And this to me is just indicative of where we are at right now as a society. They say that they will not be airing the briefings live due to a pattern of false or misleading information provided that cannot be fact-checked in real time. What's false and misleading? They don't even say because they can't, because there is nothing there. They are just trying to brainwash you. You are being manipulated, and the government is subsidizing it. I think these people should lose their funding. I think they should be kicked off NPR. Go find a radio station that wants to host your garbage, but don't expect taxpayers to fund it, especially when you're trying to undermine the safety and security of citizens across this whole nation by refusing to air a press conference from the President of the United States and the expert panel and team that he's put together to fight this. Whose side are these people on? Are they on the American people's side, or are they just shills for the Chinese Communist Party? Or for the never Trump Democrats who would rather see this country destroyed than do anything to help President Trump, and in a lot of cases have remote accountability for their obvious corruption and or complicity in covering up corruption. This is disgusting, and it's just a sign of the times. As we have Biden, who's saying, I think we've had enough debates. Well, of course he's going to say that. The guy can't even hold a sentence together for more than, 2 minutes. He can't even speak in a line of logic that's congruent with the singular questions he's asked. So his mind is deteriorating, it seems, and he's still the front runner. He's still the one everybody's throwing their weight behind. I guess that's where we're going to keep going with this. Even the Washington Post had to give him, 4 Pinocchios, whatever that means, because his team said that Trump silenced the CDC officials. Well, that's not true, but who cares? We'll just run it in the Washington Post because, nobody likes facts anymore. They just like crazy, nonsensical, biased, partisan opinions. I guess that's the world we live in today. And also the former Vice President Joe Biden has kept pushing misinformation about the coronavirus. There's a few different examples. He talked about the CDC budget being slashed. He falsely said Trump rejected the WHO tests, a lot of which turned out maybe to be defective, but that's a whole nother story. The Biden campaign video falsely claimed that Trump called the virus a hoax, and Biden's campaign falsely accusing Trump of silencing CDC officials, the one we just covered. Plus, he said that he hasn't criticized the president's coronavirus response. I mean, it's like, this guy is in La La Land. He doesn't even live in the real world. Everything that's happening is just, right over his head. He doesn't understand it, but that's, I guess, what they're going to run with coming up. And Pelosi, of course, delaying the vote again for the coronavirus relief bill until Thursday. This is the bill that was put together by the Senate. It's been endorsed by President Trump. And who knows? We're going to have to see what happens there. It looks like there's going to be $2 trillion, as we talked about before, and we'll see how that all comes out. Not to mention here, going into more coronavirus stuff, you have social media prankster, or as I like to call moron, licks bar on a subway train in New York at the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States. All I know is that these people should not be getting free health care. I don't think that it's fair to taxpayers for you to have people that exist in the world that are this, I don't know if you want to say stupid or just, conceited or naive or ignorant, but you can probably use a whole different set of terminology for this guy, but I'll keep it nice and say, look, this guy is exactly the reason why I don't think that people understand how bad it will get if we have this whole socialized Medicare, healthcare, and all that stuff. Because you're going to have people like this that screw it up for everyone. This is just stupid to me, but I have to highlight it. And if I have to say this, a few things out there. Note to everyone watching, do not drink fish aquarium cleaner. Do not lick poles in the subway. Do not lick things in stores and videotape it. Don't do any of that stuff. Don't get on a live stream and claim you have coronavirus and scare people and walk through stores. Don't do this stupid stuff. These people are idiots. And this is, it just blows my mind when I see this stuff. Of course, thinking about what President Trump said, and we talked about in the mainstream media yesterday was their big, the fish tank cleaner incident. Well, Dr. Fauci came out and said today, of course he would prescribe chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine to coronavirus patients. Well, you have the Nevada Democrat governor issuing his emergency order barring the use of this anti-malaria drug for coronavirus patients. I wonder why. Now, basically, the order as mandated by the governor makes it very hard to get this particular medicine and very hard to prescribe it to certain patients, which seems to be the opposite of what you want to do in the middle of a pandemic where you're trying to heal people and keep them from dying. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide if this is right or not. But I thought this was a very deep insight into how the Democrats work in times of crisis, especially as you have an entire country that's trying to come together and find solutions. And we're having a lot of positive stories come out. A lot of it's anecdotal, yes. But there have even been reports of studies coming out of like Korea where they've actually tested it and it seems to be working. These are peer-reviewed studies. So we're thinking right now this could be a possible, treatment. And it could help people who are suffering. Yet you have people who have no idea, really. Steve Sisolak, coming out and saying, we're going to ban it. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if the order was really about keeping people from hoarding it or if it's really about helping people who, not helping people, I should say, those who need it in order to continue to further the crisis. Only time will tell on that. A few more things before we go. You look at places all around the country where you have all of these different problems, but one of the biggest places that's hit is like Washington in the Northwest area, and you have Portland here, saying that stores were vandalized as businesses ordered to close and inmates were released. What could go wrong? Shut down Main Street, release everyone from prison, and tell the police they can't arrest anyone. They can only write tickets. I'm sure that's a recipe to not have your society collapse overnight. Although it seems like it isn't. It seems like there's going to be major problems coming up for some of these big cities that have these terribly run Democrat governments, and this is only the first of many, it seems, if we continue down this path. Another thing I want to talk about quickly, Zero Hedge coming out with this story. Why did hundreds of CEOs resign just before the world started going absolutely crazy? This is a great question. Q's told us to watch for the resignations, and this article kind of outlines it very well, talking about all of these major corporations whose CEOs stepped down in 2019. But again, I'm sure this is all just a big coincidence. Nothing to see here. Mainstream media won't talk about it, but we'll talk about it here on this channel. Another story I want to highlight here was this Dr. Fauci. Now, people, I'm a little iffy on what to think about Dr. Fauci, because there are things like this where he writes letters to Cheryl Mills to basically about Hillary Clinton, saying, "Tell the secretary that I love her more than ever." That doesn't look good, but like Q said, a lot of these people have been turned, basically have come to our side. They've been given an option. You can either help this evil or you can help us. And a lot of people, as Q said, were not really evil people. They were basically threatened, saying, if you don't get on board, we will come after you. But, you look at a private email like this, there's not much reason for him to talk about loving Hillary Clinton. So I'll leave that for you guys to decide. And finally, before we go, this study was just kind of confirmed. Now, if you guys remember, back a few months ago, they came out with the preliminary findings for this University of Alaska Fairbanks report talking about World Trade Center 7. And we will never forget what happened on that day. But now they've officially released their full report, which seems to basically outline that the only way, and this is talking about Building 7, or World Trade Center 7, saying the only way it could have fallen in the observed manner is by the near simultaneous failure of every column. So ask yourself, does a fire cause every column in a massive building to crumble at the same exact time in basic free fall? Maybe that's some place to start for some of you new Anons who have just joined us. And a lot of the people that have been around for a while have been keeping an eye on things like this in the background, because they're important, that we never forget what happened that day, and we always push for the truth in all of these things. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. A few more things before we go. Obviously, come here, watch these videos, share them. There is that content suppression algorithm, and you guys are breaking it lately by clicking these videos, sharing them, getting that message out there. I really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to come here and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments after this video. I want to hear what you guys have to think about everything that we talked about here today on the show. Also, don't forget, use the link in the description to download the Brave browser for free. You download it, then you run it and install it on your computer, and it's an internet browser that's better than any other one out there today. It's just like Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, whatever you're using, but it's better because it's free. You download it and run it, and it blocks the ads, and it makes your internet experience that much better. I promise you guys will love this product. So use the link in the description to download the Brave browser today, install it, and run it on your computer, and they'll make a contribution to this channel. So thank you for checking that out. You guys can also find me over here on Twitter at JUSTINFORMED. That's a great way to connect. Also the backup channel, bitshoot.com/justinformedtalk, and the website justinformednews.com. A couple other ways you can help out the channel are both financial. Patreon, patreon.com. You guys come use the link in the description if you guys want to help support this channel. Your support is what keeps this channel going in the face of everything they've done to try to shut it down. YouTube's tried to pull the demonetization out on the back end, tried to do everything they can to try to put this channel out of business, but you guys have kept it alive for this long, and I'm thankful for your support. I also have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. Links to everything that we've talked about here today will be in the description. That includes links to all the articles that we talked about, so you guys can read further and share them on your social media as well. So before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, I want to share this verse with you guys. And it talks about faith triumphing. And that reminded me of what one of the more recent Q posts where it says God wins. And what does that really mean? And I want to share this verse with you. I think we've talked about it before, but this is what it really means, that God wins, right? I want to share this verse. It's chapter 5, verse 1 through 5 in Romans. It says, "Therefore, since we have been declared righteous by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Also through him, we have obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And not only that, but we also rejoice in our afflictions, because we know that affliction produces endurance, and endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope. This hope does not disappoint, because God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. And that's where it is, guys. Remember that. I know it's tough right now, and you guys probably heard me last episode. I was frustrated and upset, but you know what happened? Your prayers worked. I asked you guys to pray for me, and God came and just delivered everything. I was worried about this and I was worried about that, and God came through, and I thank you guys for that. And that's why we have to pray for each other. That's why we have to work harder every single day to understand that our faith needs to grow as the affliction that we face grows, right? So depend on God in everything, and you will be saved. You will be blessed. And remember that Jesus did die on the cross for your sins. You can share that with your friends and family and loved ones and be blessed by our Lord and Savior. And remember that, as it says here, affliction produces endurance, and endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope, right? The endurance to move through the affliction gives you the proven character to show that you have the faith that's strong enough to be cause for hope. And then God delivers. So that's my message to you. Spread that, share that with your family, friends, and people you meet out in the street. Remember, social distancing, stay 6 feet away. But that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. Remember to come here, hit the big red subscribe button, and then also hit it, punch it, tap it, headbutt it, hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.